Hi, boys and girls. Today in Social Studies, we're going to be covering Chapter 2, Lesson 2, Part 1. You'll be watching this slideshow on the lesson, and then you're going to complete the assignment on slide number 7. In this picture, you see a depiction of a wigwam. They were made primarily with birch bark. There's a framework underneath what you see that was made out of trees, and then it was covered with birch bark and with pieces of branches, and it was their shelter and home. And then you also see two pictures of what are called arrowheads or spear points, what they would use. They were made out of stone and carved by Native Americans. All right. I'm starting on page 47. Think about these questions while you read. Where did the first people in Michigan live before they came here? About when did they arrive? All right, we've got a story here. What I found at the farm. It was April and I was ready for spring. I was restless. School was getting on my nerves. I liked my teacher, but you can only take so much sitting in the classroom. I had forgotten all about the field trip Mrs. Sanford had planned. We were going to a farm, but this was not a modern farm. On this farm, they used horses as they did over 100 years ago. Mrs. Sanford thought it would be a good idea for us to learn about the old ways farmers once used. Finally, the bus stopped and they let us out. Now we could stretch our legs. There were two horses on the other side of the fence. They were the biggest horses I had ever seen. I mean, huge. Mrs. Jackson had come to keep an eye on us. She parked her car next to the fence. You would not believe what happened. One of those horses walked over by it and licked her window. Gross! Mrs. Jackson let out a little squeal. She ran over and shooed the horse away. It was funny. The farmer hitched the horses to a plow. He explained why it was so important to plow the field before planting the seeds. He told us it was hard work for the horses to pull the plow. Then they went to work. They slowly moved across the ground. The metal plow turned the dirt over as it went. He said using horses is much, much slower than using a tractor. He had to start and stop and let the horses rest. You could see they were all sweaty. While they were resting, he asked the class to come over and see how the plow worked. You had to be careful as you walked. The dirt was soft after it was plowed. There were also some big stones in the dirt. So I was watching when I saw something in the ground. It just caught my eye. It didn't look like a normal stone, but it was made out of stone. I picked it up. It was thin and pointed. I held it up and asked, "What is this?" The farmer spoke. He said, "Young lady, what you have there is a spear point. It is something made by the Native Americans probably hundreds or thousands of years ago. It was made out of a kind of stone called flint." I stood and gave it to him. He told me, "You keep that artifact and take it to school. Your class can study it. Maybe it will get you all excited about learning about the people who lived here a very long time ago." Back on the bus, I passed the spear point around. Everyone got to hold it and look at it. We were all excited, and we did want to learn more. We had many questions for Mrs. Sanford by the time we returned to school. Who actually made the spear point? How long ago did they live here? What was life like for those people? And what sort of homes did they have? Go back in time. Let's answer some of those questions. What was happening hundreds of years ago right where you're sitting? What would you see? You might see wigwams. Wigwams are made out of birch bark. The bark goes over the frame of the wood. The birch bark was peeled off birch trees. The people you see speak differently. They dress differently too. Who are they? They are Native Americans. They are the first people here. Native means first. These people are also called Indians. The name Indians was used by people who were lost. Those people came here from far away and thought they had found India, the country of India. Let's meet the people who first lived where you live now. They lived in tribes. A tribe is like a big group of relatives all living in the same neighborhood. They may be called Ojibwa. They might be Ojibwe. Others were Potawatomi. These are the names of the 3 tribes. Each tribe had its own ways of doing things. Each had its own beliefs and language. They lived close to nature. Most of us live very differently than the first people. They lived very close to nature. If they wanted something, they found it or made it. They adapted to the environment. They changed the way they lived to use what nature provided. Today, we depend on a store having it. We use money to pay for it. When they were hungry, the tribes hunted or fished for food. They could not open the freezer to get something for dinner. If they needed a plant, they grew it or knew where to find it. Almost every day, they saw the sun rise. They saw the sun go down. They saw the stars at night. You probably watch TV when the sun goes down, and most nights you don't see the stars because you are indoors. They understood that all things are connected. Each plant and animal is part of a bigger picture. The tribes did not kill more animals than they needed for food. They knew that each animal gave up its life so that they could be used for fur or food. How did they get here? Have people always lived here? Most who study history do not think so. These historians think that there were no people in North America at first. North America includes 3 nations. They are Canada, the United States, and Mexico. They think the first groups moved from Asia. To help you find Asia, look for China on a map. China is a nation in Asia. These groups crossed a strip of land to reach Alaska. That land was covered by part of an ocean. That land is now covered by part of an ocean. We call this area of water the Bering Strait. Some historians think they might have moved from other places instead. The first people here may have come from South America. Historians are still searching for the final answer. If no one lived here, why did they come? People move for different reasons. Perhaps there wasn't enough food in Asia. That would have pushed them away, probably looking for more food, right? Maybe hunting was better in North America. That would have pulled them toward North America. Maybe they wanted to explore. Or maybe they were trying to escape or get away from war. That would have pushed them away. Well, once in North America, they spread out, and finally, some of them reached Michigan. When did they arrive? How long ago did the first people come? We think it was about 12,000 years ago. They reached southern Michigan first. Why? Well, before that time, the land was covered with ice. Yes, it was covered with a glacier of ice. Thousands of years ago, the ice began to melt. It melted first in the south, where it was warmer. People could live in the south while it was still icy in the north. How do we know these things? Well, people who study the past tell us. These historians look for clues buried in the ground. Sometimes they dig up things left behind by the first people. They may find arrowheads, stone tools, or other clues. Did you know, or do you know of anyone who found an arrowhead or a spear point? How many were there. Going back 400 years, there were tribes that lived here alone. There were fewer people, about 35,000 to 45,000 people lived in Michigan then. It was hard to know for sure, but historians are trying to make the best guess they can. So that's where I'm going to leave off today, boys and girls, right at the end of this paragraph. We'll read the rest on Thursday in part 2. You're going to go to slide number 7 now and answer these questions. Write 3 complete sentences to answer the essay question. Historians and scientists are still trying to understand how people came to North America. What do they believe may have been the reasons for people to come to North America? Now, we just read about it, but I'm giving you a hint there that you might want to go back and reread pages 52 and 53 on slide number 5 to look for your answer. And then 2 short questions at the bottom. What 3 nations made up North America? And then the last question, what is the top layer of a wigwam made of? All right, that's all for now.